Hi, I'm Andy Stevenson, and I'm really pleased to be able to welcome you to the first of my Zoom author interviews. It's with Alan McDermott, million-plus best-selling author of the fantastic Tom Gray series and the Eva Driscoll series, as well as other brilliant action thriller titles such as Motive and The Sokolov Agenda. I'm privileged to have narrated 9 of Alan's books now. I wanted to find out more about his work and his life as an author and what his writing plans are for 2023 and beyond. Now, stick around to the end of the video when I will tell you how you can get some free giveaways of Alan's books in Kindle and audiobook form. But in the meantime, sit back and enjoy. Hi, Alan. Good to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Alan and I live miles away from each other. Alan's down on the south coast. I'm up in Cumbria. I've narrated 9 audiobooks for Alan now, but we've never actually met, but we do meet quite often on Zoom, and this is another occasion. And today, Alan, obviously we're having a chat about your work and your career and what it's like to be an author and all of that jazz. So let's go. And the first question, Alan McDermott, million-plus best-selling author. How did that feel when you first found that out?
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started out, I was hoping for 2 sales a day. That would have been good for me. You know, I was hoping maybe I can make £100 a month, you know, and I would have been a happy chappy.
Yeah.
But to get to 1 million sales and then 1.5 million sales, it's just been unbelievable.
Yeah, amazing. And with your first book, or at least your first, it became a series, of course, but your first book was Grey Justice, and it went on from there, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I did Grey Justice July 2011.
Yeah.
And then it was probably about 6 months later, when I'd sold about 68 copies, someone says to me, when's the sequel coming out?
Yeah.
So I hadn't really thought about a sequel. So I thought, well, why not? You know, if I'm making 68 copies in 6 months, 120, maybe that's 200 copies a year if I've got 2 books. So I wrote the second one. And then I thought, well, I can't leave it there. So I'll write a third one. And things just really took off from there.
Yeah.
I made Grey Justice free. And sales from the other 2 books gave me 10-figure sales for 5 months in a row.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So your eyes started going like a fruit machine, did they? You know?
Yeah. So did
pound signs
Amazon's.
are going up and down.
Yeah. Amazon's as well, because they contacted me and offered me a publishing deal.
Okay.
With their imprint, Thomas and Mercer.
Right.
So I signed up with them, and I published 10 books with them.
Yeah. So Grey Justice, then, from what you just said, you never set out to make a series. It just kind of developed from there as you went along. Okay. Well, let's focus on the Grey series a little bit, because there are people out there who still won't have come across it, I suppose. So tell us a little bit about that series.
Well, it's about Tom Gray.
Yeah.
He's an ex-soldier. He's now got his own security firm. And his son is killed by a repeat offender, criminal car thief. And the guy serves something like 8 months on remand. And then he's released for time served because he pleads guilty to a lesser charge. Now, Gray thinks that's not suitable punishment, considering the guy had over 30 previous offences.
Yeah.
You know, if you make one mistake, that's fine. But 30, that's not mistakes, it's deliberate.
Absolutely.
So Gray looks for his own justice. Hence the name Grey Justice.
Yeah, yeah.
So what he does is he kidnaps this offender plus 4 others, repeat offenders, and he parades them on the internet, and he lets the British public decide on their fate.
Okay.
Now, the security services know where he is. but they're powerless to stop him. And if you want to know why, you'll have to listen to the audiobook.
Or indeed read the book,
Or
which
read,
of course
or read
is
the ebook, yeah.
available on Amazon and in Kindle form as well as paperback form. So yeah, so the Grey series really kicked things off for you. But what made you decide to become a writer? A bit of an obvious question, but what kicked it all off for
I have
you?
to be crass and say cash. It was
Right.
money.
Yeah.
Because at the time, my kids were 4 years old, twin girls.
Uh-huh.
My wife wasn't working. The money I was making wasn't covering the bills. So I had to do something to bring some money in.
Sure.
I tried building websites and trying to monetize them because I was a web
Okay.
developer at the time. And that was making nothing. And then one of the girls at work told me that she had a short story she was writing. I said, "Oh, I wrote one of these." And I dug it out and I sent her a copy.
Yeah.
She said, "That's amazing. You've got to get that published." I said, "No publisher is going to be interested in this." She said, "No, you self-publish it." So she told me all about it, Smashwords, Amazon's, etc.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, I'm not going to get much from a 5,000 word short story. So maybe I'll try a full novel. And that's where Grey Justice came along.
Okay. Well, maybe there's some short stories brewing then, with starting with that one, but perhaps in the future. But we won't go there now because we want to focus on what you've done so far and what you're doing this year. Okay, so where do you get the ideas from for the Tom Gray series from?
For the original book, Grey
Yeah.
Justice, I was watching Road Wars. You know that series? Where it's
Uh-huh.
the live cop show chasing the bad guys in cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw this police chase, and it was 15 minutes through town centres and up on pavements and red lights, and after this really, really long chase, the guy crashed, and the voiceover said they caught the driver, and it was his 46th offence or something like that,
Right.
and he was given community service. And I thought, that's not much of a
Right.
punishment for all these offences he's got, and he's doing it again and again, and he's got community punishment. That's, what if he'd killed someone? What? And I thought, yeah, what if he had?
Yeah.
What would the parents do? What would the husband do? And that was just the seed of the idea, and
Okay.
that became Grey Justice.
Yes, and of course that scenario occurred in Grey Justice, of course. Okay, that's interesting. And in your books, you have all sorts of characters. Obviously, there's the main characters, Tom Gray and his friends, and a few villains as well, of course. But lots of other characters pop in and out, and so forth. How do you conjure up so many?
To be honest, I don't mean to. I'd like to keep it about 4 or 5 characters so the reader knows who's who. But in real life, if something like this was going to happen, you're going to meet lots of people. You're going to interact with lots of people. Some of them are going to have their own speaking parts.
Yeah.
So you can't just say, met a guy and then did this. You want to flesh out who this person is. So, I do end up having something like 30 or 40 characters. But I try to keep the action down to about 4 or 5 at the very, very most.
Okay, well, I'm certainly not complaining about that, because Grey Justice, I think it was, that had 82 different speaking characters in it.
Wow.
So that gives me lots of practice, and keeps me on my toes when I'm narrating your books. So it's all part of the fun. So I'm certainly not complaining about that. Now, from your books, you seem to know a lot about the military and the way the military works, and the secret services as well. And I begin to think, when I was narrating the Grey series, that you probably had a mole in MI5 that was feeding you all this information about how things work in MI5. But no, I'm sure you didn't. But obviously, you're very good at your research.
Well, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill myself. So I don't want to do that.
No, and certainly not on air as well. We can't have any
No.
of that. No.
No, it was mostly research. I was never in the army, but I did get into develop an interest in the SAS from the
Yeah.
incident in Princess Gate, the Iranian embassy siege.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And from then, I read a lot of non-fiction about the SAS, and then I started to read the Bravo 20 books, the one that got
Okay.
away by Chris Ryan, which is a different take on the same incident. So yeah, it's just mostly from there.
Right.
Also watching a lot of action movies,
Yeah.
though anyone worth their salt is going to tell you that the action movies are not where you get your military training from.
No. No. Sure.
As for the spy stuff, that was very, very easy because I had free license. I could do whatever I want.
Right.
With the military stuff, if a soldier reads it, he can get in touch and say, that's not how you do it.
Sure.
You've got it all completely wrong.
Yeah.
With the spy stuff, the only people that could tell me I'm wrong is spies.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, okay, I'm going to blow my cover just to tell you that
No, I don't. I don't
that
suppose.
the office layout is a bit different.
Yeah. So, so you're safe there.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, your dad was in the army, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was young, we travelled around a lot. I was
Yeah.
born in West Germany, actually. We
Okay.
moved to Edinburgh, then down south, and
Yeah.
then back up to Catterick. Lots of army postings, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was in the Air Force, so I had a similar sort of upbringing. We lived in Cyprus for a time, but most of the time it was in the UK. But the most difficult thing about writing novels, what do you think that would be? Because I mean, your past jobs, you've worked in teams, presumably, when before you became a novelist, and all of a sudden you're on your own. I mean, that must have been a bit of a challenge. But what do you find most difficult about writing books?
Distractions,
Okay.
mainly from my family.
Right.
That's when I started writing. I was getting up at 4:30 in the morning before anyone else. I would get up, have a shower, get dressed, and I would bang out an hour and a half of writing.
Wow.
Then
Yeah.
I would go to work,
Okay.
and then I would come home, help with the tea, get the kids ready because they were still young at the time,
Yeah.
bathe them, dry their hair, and get them off to bed. By which time I was shattered.
Yeah.
So the only writing I got
surprised.
done was early in the morning. Now the kids are
Amazing.
older,
Yeah.
but my wife's not working, so we're both at home all day, and she tends to get a little bit bored, and she'll come through and well, just 2 minutes of your time, 2 minutes, and then 3 hours later, that's it.
Yeah.
But the main problem with it is that when I'm writing, I try to get a scene in my head. I picture the characters sitting at the table or at the bar, wherever they
Okay.
are,
Yeah.
and I picture them, and I try to picture their emotions and what they're going to say. What would a sane person say? I get it in my head, and then I start to type, and someone goes, "Daddy, can I?" So I deal with that, and I come back, and I've completely lost what I had. So I have to start again, and I can go through this process 10 times a day,
Right. Right.
just with little distractions.
Well, I hope when they, assuming they watch this video, that they're not going to say, "You never said, Dad. If you just told us, we would have kept out."
Yeah.
But with audiobook narration, of course, you don't really want interruptions because I'm locked away in my little studio. It's my wife knows whenever I'm in there and knows to keep out my way unless there's something urgent. So I don't have quite the same problems, and I don't have kids running around as well. So that makes life a little bit easier, I guess. Now, recently, your past jobs, have they influenced you at all in your writing skills?
Not really. As I said, I was a web developer at one point, and I used some of that knowledge in Grey Justice, where he has a website built, and I just do a little bit of explanation about how it helps to keep in secret, etc., etc. But no, I'd say that was the only bit.
Okay.
I don't think anyone would be interested in my time as a custard shoveler. I,
Custard
I,
shoveler.
a
Really?
custard shoveler, yeah. In my early
Is that
20s, I was
Cockney rhyming slang or something?
no, it's a real job. I worked in a factory that used to make do the packaging for companies like Victoria Foods, I think it was.
Uh-huh.
And my job was to take a big skip full of powdered custard and shovel it into a hopper so it could feed into the bags and get bagged up and put on the shelves.
Okay.
So that was my job, like 4 hours at a time, just shoveling custard.
Wow. It's probably built up your biceps a bit, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, when I next have rhubarb and crumble with custard, I'll think of the poor old custard shoveler out there then.
Yes. Yes, do that.
Amazing. Okay. And what about cruise ships? You spent some time on cruise ships. They enabled you presumably to see the world a little bit, and that might have reflected in some of the Grace series is based in the Philippines, South Africa, and so on. Is that how you got your ideas for those overseas locations?
No, in the cruise ships, we started out in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
then it was Singapore,
Yeah.
and we did a couple of trips over to Malaysia, but I don't think I based anything there really.
Okay.
Oh, maybe a couple of scenes from Grey Resurrection were based in Singapore,
Right.
but
Yeah.
no, all the other the Philippines. I used the Philippines because I've been there about 6 times.
All right.
My wife's from the Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been there a few times. I haven't been down south, which is the area that was mentioned in Grey Resurrection.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, we basically just stayed in Manila and a few resorts around there.
Right. Right. Okay. Now, last year you wrote a one-off book, or at least it's a one-off book at the moment. Whether there's going to be a sequel to it, maybe you'll be able to reveal in a moment. But the Sokolov Agenda, and it introduced a new character, Alex Mann, seems to have gone down really well, and spookily topical as well. Even though I think you started writing it before Mr. Putin went on the march towards Ukraine,
Yes,
and yet
yes, I did.
there's some spookily topical stuff that comes out in that. Tell us a little bit about the Sokolov Agenda and how you got the idea for that.
Well, again, it was just with everything, it's just the seed of an idea.
Yeah.
And I'll write a couple of scenes and just see where it takes me.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll start writing the book.
Yeah.
The scene doesn't grab me, doesn't take me anywhere, so I'll put it aside and I'll start on another idea.
Okay.
With this one, it was a British spy who's working abroad, and he gets abandoned by his own people. And I thought that he was going to do something else. He was going to escape and then go back for revenge. But then I thought, well, let's see how it goes first. So I kept writing and writing, and then another idea came to me. I thought, oh, I could do this instead, and then something else and something, and then it just they all develop as I go along, because I'm not one of these people that will say, okay, here's the start of the book, here all the way down to the end, and I know exactly what I'm going to write.
Right.
And it's never like that.
Okay, that's fascinating. So you don't set off with a list of all the chapters and bullet points of what's going to happen in those chapters. There's a certain evolution that takes place as you're writing, which is
exactly, yeah.
Wow.
I'll do about bullet points for 3 or 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And then by the time I get to the end, I'll have bullet points for the next couple, because I've been having ideas as I've been writing. And it just goes like that. Right. Everything just evolves as I'm writing.
That's amazing. Because it must be quite difficult then to sometimes keep the thread of where the story's going. I mean, Motive was another one-off book that you did, which I thought was a fantastic book. And there were, for the first half of it, it was almost like there were 3 stories going on.
Yeah.
And then those 3 stories started to knit together gradually to the point where you got the climax of the book, where everything was, related to what was going on in each of those 3 separate stories. Now, that must have been really difficult to write, even if you'd planned it out ahead, let alone for it to evolve as you're going along.
Yeah.
So
Well,
well done for
it
that.
did take quite a bit of writing. So what I did, I wrote, I started doing two threads at the same time.
Okay.
And then I thought, no, what I'll do, I'll write one, then I'll write the second one and see where it fits in. And then
Yeah.
I'll write the third based on what
Okay.
I've done so far. So,
Right.
so I wrote the three like separate, and then they all came together at the end. So I
Yeah.
finished the first one, and then I knew at this point this is where they're going to conjoin. So then I could use the others to build up to meet at that point.
Right. There's no way I could do that. I'd just lose myself. I think I'll stick to reading.
I did get lost a couple of times, and I had to go back and change it.
And
But yeah,
check things
I was
out,
quite
probably.
proud of that. I'm proud of the
Yeah.
way that one came out. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
The only time when I need to really go back when I'm narrating a book is if there's a character that popped up in, say, chapter 3 and then reappears in chapter 18. So obviously I need to check what his voice sounded like. But with narrating, it's a fairly linear process, thankfully, because that suits me. Okay. Now the Eva Driscoll series, which is coming along well, and the sales are probably coming on very well by the look of the number of reviews that you're getting on Amazon. Maybe it's catching up in terms of sale numbers, is it, with the Tom Gray series?
It's catching up to the Grey series.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's very, very popular, the Eva Driscoll series. Yeah,
Yeah. And did you, I mean, it's based in America. Did you
that's
write
right.
it with the American market in mind primarily, or?
Yes, I did,
Yeah.
because the first 7 books that I've written were the Grey series, 6 books in the Grey series, and then Trojan, which was an
Oh,
Andrew
yeah, of
Harvey
course.
spin-off.
Yeah.
And then my publisher was saying, we've got these authors and these authors, and they're doing this and they're doing that. So okay, I'll try something based in America then.
Right.
Same as these other authors were doing.
Yeah.
And it did okay with Thomas and Mercer. But by the end of the third book, I started writing a fourth, and they said, well, it's not really going all that well.
Oh, okay.
Well, for me, I thought, yeah, it's going well.
Yeah.
But obviously it wasn't well enough.
Right.
So I decided to self-publish that, and then I thought, well, I'll do
Okay.
another one
Right.
because I've now got all my rights back. So all of my books are now self-published.
Right.
So I'm no longer with
Yeah.
Thomas and Mercer.
No.
All my rights are my own, and the series that's dominating the sales at the moment is the Eva Driscoll series.
Yes.
It's very, very popular.
And of course, you've got book 5, is it, that's coming out of that series next month?
Yep. Empires Will Fall is out on the 24th of February.
Yeah.
And I'm currently working on book 6.
Okay. And how long do you reckon that's going to take you then? Will that be out before the end of the year?
Depends on the family.
Yeah, lock the door, mate. That's
Yeah.
that's the answer.
I'm thinking of getting myself one of those sheds down the bottom of the garden.
Right, yeah, man cave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could get a bit chilly in there though, couldn't it?
Yes.
In the
Yes,
winter.
that's my only concern. It's chilly in the house now.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, I have actually in my little studio, which used to be a toilet, so I call it the Ludio. Ha ha. I don't actually have any heating in there because it's nice and small and soundproofed. And in the winter, all I do is I turn the light on 5 minutes before I go and sit in there, and the light bulb warms it up enough, even up in Cumbria. So can't be bad. Okay. So the standalone books you mentioned, or we've mentioned, Motive and the Sokolov Agenda and Trojan and so on. There's also 15 Times a Killer that you wrote a couple of years ago, I think. So are you planning any sequels to any of those?
Motive, I've started a second Ryan Anderson.
Yes.
Okay. But I painted myself into a corner. I got about a quarter of the way through
Right.
and got stuck.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I'll leave it and I'll move on to something else. I think I moved on to the Fifth Eve Driscoll, I think it was.
Yeah.
No, it was the fourth one. It was When Death Strikes. And then I went back to it after that,
Yeah.
and I couldn't see, I reread it and I couldn't see where it was going. So I did 15 Times a Killer, and then didn't know what was going to happen. Tried it again, couldn't get anywhere. Did Sokolov, tried it again before I started this new book. I can't. I'm going to go back, and one day I'm going to find a way, and I'm going to get that book finished.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those frustrating ones. I don't want to bin it and start again
No. Well,
because
it was
I'm happy with how it starts.
it was sort of teed up for a
Yeah,
sequel, wasn't it? In the way that
it
it
was.
ended,
Yeah.
which of course I won't reveal now. So it'd be interesting if that comes along. But all the books that you've written, all the characters, 82, as I mentioned, in Grey Justice, and goodness knows how many in the whole series. Who's your favourite character?
Sonny Baines.
Sonny Baines.
He's Sonny Baines.
Yeah.
He's one of the original characters from Grey Justice. Sonny, ex-SAS. They call him Sonny because when he passed selection, he looked like a teenager, even though he was in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
And even now, he's pushing 40 now, I think, and he still gets away with shaving 10 years off his age. He's a cheeky chap.
Yeah.
Always joking, messing around, practical jokes. But when the chips are down, he's all action.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
I like Sonny. Yeah.
He's a tough little critter. And
and he gets some good lines as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he's your favourite because he comes out with some really good lines, and the banter between him, Gray, but him particularly with Len Smart, the other main character of Tom Gray's sidekicks, is really good. Okay. I mean, audiobooks, we've between us, we've now managed nine of your audiobooks, and 10 if you include 15 Times a Killer, which was done in America. So because it's based in America, you needed an American narrator for that. Yeah, so with audiobooks, it seems to me that, people are either in the wanting to read a book camp, they're the readers, or they're the listeners. There's not too many people tend to get a book and think, right, I'm going to read that book and I'm also going to listen to the audiobook version as well, which is a pity, but that's the way it is. It's a bit of an either or. What's your view on whether people should perhaps, who've read some of your books, maybe give listening to the audiobook version a go? I
definitely think they should. I myself, I wasn't an audiobook person. When I was with Thomas and Mercer, they had all my books turned into audiobooks, and they would send me my author copies, like 25 copies, or no, I think it was 10 for the audiobooks.
Yeah.
And they just sat in a box in a cupboard. And it was about 3 years after Grey Justice came out that I was looking for something, and I came across them, and I thought, well, maybe I'll have a listen. So I put Grey Justice in, and I gave up after about 5 minutes. I just couldn't get into it. So I haven't listened to anything since. But then when you started doing your narration for me, and you were sending me one chapter at a time, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
Because then, if you get a character wrong, the voice wrong in chapter 1,
sure,
I can't tell you after you've done 42 chapters. So sending me one chapter at a time for me to proof and listen to, I really, really got into it. Good. Even though I know the stories myself.
Yeah.
So I wrote them. But yeah, it's really, really, I really, really got into it. I look forward to them now.
Yes, I'm certainly glad that we do it that way with a chapter at a time, because it would be a bit of a blow if you came to me after 40 chapters and said, actually, the Tom Gray voice that you did in chapter 1 and ever since Doesn't sound quite right to me. That would be a bit awkward having to change the whole thing. But thankfully, we haven't had that situation. I think we're coming to a close now, Alan. It's been fascinating to hear about how you put your books together. It's been brilliant working with you so far on the audiobooks. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed reading the books. And they're a great challenge for a narrator with all the different characters and voices and so forth. So thanks again for your time today, and good luck during 2023 with your next two Eva Driscoll books, which I'm sure will go down really well, as have the others. And I look forward to working with you again. And I think the next project I'm on for you is Trojan, the Andrew Harvey, who's the MI5 guy in the Tom Gray series. It's a spin-off Trojan, so I'll be doing that one for you in a couple of months' time, and I really look forward to that. So thanks again, Alan. Great to see you, and keep up the good work, mate. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Andy.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. A fascinating insight into the work of one of the UK's top-selling action thriller writers. Thanks so much, Alan, for your time. Now, I mentioned at the start that we have some giveaways for you, and it's for the first book Alan released back in 2011, which happens to be book 1 in the Tom Gray series, Grey Justice. Trust me, if you like action and crime thrillers, then you don't want to miss this book, because it is both. And it is exciting, gripping, brilliant. I'm running out of superlatives. So, to get a free copy of the audiobook, email me, my address is shown below, and I'll reply by sending you a link which will take you directly to the page in Spotify where you can redeem your personal code and then enjoy your free listen. It's dead simple. If you have a Spotify account, you'll be asked to log in to listen to the book, and if you don't have one, you'll be prompted to create one free of charge. There's no obligation to buy any audiobooks beyond this free one. Don't delay emailing me though, because I only have a limited number of codes. Once you've got your code and redeemed it, the audiobook is yours for good. If you want a free copy of the ebook, that's the Kindle version, through Amazon, then make a note that it will be offered free of charge for a limited period from the 20th of February, that's 2023, so check it out soon and get your copy. Hey, there's nothing to stop you having both the audiobook and the ebook. Try both for an all-round perspective. Take advantage while both are free. Finally, look out for both Alan and myself on Facebook, and send us each a friend request, because we like to look after our Facebook friends, and we'll keep you informed of the books and audiobooks that we release between us, along with other news, offers and giveaways. Anyway, thanks for watching, and bye for now.